Hello and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host Bryan. We're going to wrap up today with a special selection, which is where one of you tell me exactly what it is I need to check out. Today's comes at us from Jason. React to the track Observation Through Metamorphosis by Subterranean Masquerade from the EP that truly got me to delve into avant-garde metal in my youth. This band likes to use many multisyllabic words. We can see that in their band name, Subterranean Masquerade, in the song title, Observation Through Metamorphosis. Even the album is called Temporary Psychotic State, although that one is just a little bit shorter, I suppose. I don't know what we're in store for here, other than that it's metal. Let's dive in, see what Subterranean Masquerade is bringing to the table today. That's distinctly not metal. Although I guess it was described as avant-garde metal, so we'll see where this develops. It is dark and eerie though. Alright, I'm kind of sold off the start.
Watching in silence, the process almost complete.
There's so many moving parts, but they're all working together so well.
This door is locked. Enchanted with demise. An image foreseen from the other room. Is this me?
For a crossfade, that was kind of jarring. It's like it was just slightly out of time. I don't know. Yeah, we have a nice triplet vibe here. Could be counted in 6/8 if you'd like. I thought that was a sin. Really big drums here. I want to hear the bass kick. I thought that was a little dry in the first section. lots of movement out to the side.
Solitude, staring inward. Beyond glass walls painted in white, surrounded by those who are consumed with boundaries and saying that death is the absolute truth, but still embrace themselves. We're about to live this recollection again. Do whatever ends, ends.
Yeah, still not a big fan of those bass kicks. The quiet tremolo is a very nice choice though, great texture. And the whole section is very eerie, dark, menacing almost. This section slightly less so. Nice rising energy here. Oh. Rising energy to a crossfade? Okay. I'm of mixed mind of this. I'm going to pull up their Rate Your Music because I want to know where this fits into their discography. This is their debut EP, coming out 1 year before their debut album. I think that certainly fits. What I wanted to say and was hoping that the history would back it up is that this sounds like a band with a lot of potential and a lot of ambition, but not quite the experience to pull it off yet. If I heard this band, I would absolutely want to support them and stick around with them, not because I'm actively enjoying them now, but because I know with the opportunity of releasing, more than just this EP, that they're going to become a powerhouse band. It makes me wonder what some of their later albums look like. What's interesting too is that their debut album, which was in 2005, they took a 10-year hiatus. They came back in 2015 for their sophomore album. That's a really big gap. An entire decade. And then they've been releasing them pretty consistently, averaging every 2 years. With their latest release being from 2021. I want to check out some of their latest stuff. I want to see what they developed into. And I think that's going to be the angle that I take on this, is that there's rough edges all over this, but they had a lot of heart. And I can see the intentions on this being really grand in scope, where maybe the execution just falters a little bit. And so, as usual, I'm not going to pull my punches. I state my opinions as they are when I review music, but I'm also not here to put any song down or put any band down. I definitely want to congratulate them where I think they did really well on as well. So, overall scope of this song is peculiar. I don't really get the idea that these sections are supposed to build into one another. The transitions are a bit rough, and the overall pacing and flow is not consistent. It doesn't feel like this is supposed to be understood in one whole take. It feels more like 5 vignettes of music that happen to all be in the same track. This could be a really great idea if the song, it is titled Observation Through Metamorphosis. Metamorphosis is change. Change can be really wild. Caterpillars to butterflies is a pretty big metamorphosis, but we do have these two very distinct forms of this creature connected. They are still the caterpillar. Maybe that's what's going on here. These ideas all feel very disjointed, but that could also just be the point of it. That's the process of the song. The lyrics might be the thing that ties all of this together, where musically there isn't much of a thread that pulls between them. We do have a couple of situations, though, where we have timbral elements that continue to recur. The clean electric guitars, the clean feminine vocals, the growls, the distorted metal guitars show up in multiple places, retaining their similar metal tone. So we do have a nice consistency of texture. The instruments themselves don't change up too much, but we do have an inconsistency of harmony. The chord progressions are all over the place. And the energy of these sections is wildly diverse. And there are very few, if any, I can't think of any, melodies that connect any of this. Not even an idea of variation on a previous melody. everything in these sections seemed to be brand new. And so it's sort of a song where on a first time listen, you just have to be along for the roller coaster ride, because if you try to anticipate where anything's going, you're just going to be wrong. But I wonder if there is anything that's a bit deeper that you can lean into on subsequent listens, that maybe it's a detail that you missed the first time through, but helps tie some of this together a little more. There is the one oddity though, I feel like the drums change, not the rhythms, but the sound of the drums change in every section. It wasn't until we got that really dry bass kick sound back in the fifth section, the penultimate section, with the 16th note bass kicks, that any part of the drums reminded me of something that came before it. And unfortunately, it was a production, a tone of the drum kick that I didn't like. I didn't like it the first time around. I didn't like it here, but at least it was some sort of connectivity between the sections. Now, speaking about instrumentation, there is a plethora of it on this track, and I think it's one of the strengths of the song, alongside its resilience to lean into metal. I don't know what they were necessarily going for at the time. This is the second track of this 2-track EP, so I'm kind of curious what the other one sounds like. But I mean, just based off of this one song, I don't know that experimental metal would necessarily be the direction I felt the band should be labeled as. There's very little metal on here at all. A vast majority of this song, the first 4 or 5 minutes, almost half the track, is I don't know, neo folk, contemporary classical stuff mixed with some, I don't know, Middle Eastern, I know it's very vague, but influence. There's a lot of drone going on in the second part of this track. But yeah, that takes up so much of this song, is this acoustic instrumentation. The metal part is actually a small portion of it. And I enjoy the fact that they have been labeled as a metal band, an experimental metal band over the years. They seem to be apprehensive, at least on this single track, to move into that metal sound. And they use it when it's necessary, not all of the time. And that is just a really big deal, and I'm very appreciative of that. They're not afraid to get into that moment when they feel the song needs to, but it, at least in this track, is only introduced when it needs to be. And I think that's pretty cool. But alongside the metal instrumentation, we just have we have the clean male vocals that are harmonized at the beginning. We have the clean feminine vocals that occur in the second section. We have a couple of clean electric guitars. We have a really sick electric bass in here that's played with a clean tone. There's the drums. There are a couple of instruments I can't place. Dang. I'm going to have to look this up during the lyric dive. I can never think of this instrument. It's a bunch of strings laid out flat. And you pluck them. And I can never remember the name of this instrument, but I've heard something like that. Some sort of instrument with a bunch of different length strings on it. Pretty tightly wound. Very striking, sharp tones. That was in here. We had a woodwind instrument in here as well. Again, don't know what kind. There was also a sitar-like instrument, another stringed instrument, pluck string instrument that occurred in the middle of the track. I don't know if it was a sitar or even if it was an Indian style instrument at all, but the timbre of it and its use for drone, they immediately make me think of instruments from that region and their typical roles to play as well. So I'm really interested if I could find, I'm interested in finding a personnel list, an instrument list for this EP. I'll see if I can do that when I look at the lyrics. What I'm trying to say is, though, there's a lot of really cool sounds on here, and I think they're all used well. Between that and what I just got done mentioning, I don't know why I can't. Oh, yeah, the resilience to get into the metal, having the patience to bring it in. I think those are two really big parts for this song. Now, the first part of the song, it's a lot of acoustic instrumentation. We have the masculine vocals coming in. It's kind of catchy. The production on it is a bit raw, but it's what I would expect for a band's first EP. I don't know what kind of finances they were working with, what kind of time restraints they were working with. It's a bit rough, but it works. Everything is clear. I can hear everything. It's not super muddy. It's not low fidelity. It just isn't perfect. I suppose that's a good way to put it. It definitely feels amateurish, but it isn't terrible. And so I don't have a lot of negative things to say about the production other than that bass kick at the beginning, but I do appreciate the clarity to everything here. There are many moving parts, and not at any point in the song do I feel like they are cluttered or overwhelming other instruments or anything like that. There were some really interesting swells that were going on towards the end of the song where an instrument would come in and just overpower everything. And not to a point that you couldn't hear everything else. It just was noticeably louder at this point. And then the instrument would duck out and the song felt a bit thin because everything is quieter. And then something else would come in and it's even louder than that first one. And just a couple of weird choices there at the end. But again, it could have just been circumstances of the situation. Generally speaking, though, the production sounds really well done for a first time through. We have this acoustic instrumentation, though. We have the male vocals with the harmony on them. This is all generally just a well-done section. It feels like there's a nice division of roles. We have ornamental ideas, we have atmospheric ideas, we have rhythmic ideas. And it's a lot of simple ideas coming together to create something more complex. It's catchy, it's digestible, but it isn't brain dead simple. There is enough complexity to it to give it some meat without actually getting into a more complex area. Really well done, and this immediately drew me into the song. The second section didn't, though. Kind of distanced me a little bit as we introduced some droning elements. We brought in the feminine vocals, and they just ad-libbed for about 2 minutes. I don't know if it was actual ad-libbing, but it's just vocal sounds, typically coming back to a home note. They contributed to the drone effect going on here. This is where that instrument, the string instrument in the background that continued to do a droning element, was present. And this section just felt like it kept going on and on and on. And I wasn't having a good time with it. I was really waiting for it to end. I thought it was pretty cool for a few seconds. And then it just was for a very long time. This is one of the sections that I think really benefits from strong production because it's going for an atmospheric element. It doesn't quite land that. It feels almost live, but it's missing the acoustics of the room. Because of that, it never quite captures the energy and emotion that I think it's trying to atmospherically. I don't think there's anything wrong with the music. Maybe a couple of small tweaks I might make to it, but generally speaking, if you're going to go for this drony, atmospheric, trancey kind of thing, the music seems to be fine. I think it really is just a production thing here, but it never quite clicked for me, and because its purpose never clicked, it felt like it way overstayed its welcome. The metal section comes in, and I think generally this part is fine. I love the division of the guitars. The bass has some cool stuff to go in here. The growling is fine, but again, the production is a little rough on it. Something is missing. It might just be layers. It might be a beefier EQ. I don't know. It's clear, it's audible, but it's just missing that X factor, that little bit of extra oomph to really make it pop. And I found this to be compounded later on in the track when the vocals were saying open your eyes or something like that, and we had the whispers, and then we had the sing-songy, and then we had the growl, and the growl always felt a bit awkward against the other two, which I felt were just produced in ways that leaned into their sounds, their timbres, and their intentions a little better. We had a couple of up and down sections here, more metallic sections, less metallic sections. Then we end on the 16th note bass kick section. I thought this was the best metallic part of the entire song. It brought the energy up. The instruments had the bite that they needed. And generally speaking, the layering and the composition all works really well here. The drum work was great. The riffs went well. Everything clicked here, except for the production on the growls. But I do think that this is the part that shows their possibility of what they can do in the future. This was fantastic on paper and almost perfect in execution. So this ending is what really made me think I need to see what these guys did next, because there's so much potential here. They're finally seeing it through a little bit. And then we have the awkward ending, the crossfade into the somber outro that kind of also just ends. I don't know. The whole outro to me was awkward. And then it never really made much sense to me. And it felt like that there should have been an extension to this section, maybe a variation on this final line, maybe an expansion of ideas, maybe bring in one more instrument to go along with it, maybe the acoustic guitar or something, keeping the energy low, but I don't know, just having a proper outro to the song. And that's kind of where I sit with this track. There's a lot of great ideas in here, marred by an iffy production, but generally okay, and several ideas that don't really make much sense to me, but show a very passionate, ambitious group of people who were just, I don't know, punching a little higher than they had the experience for. And doing a really great job of that, showing people that, you know, they have greatness within, but obviously biting off more than they can chew with this track. Let me check out some lyrics, see what's going on there. Hopefully this whole angle of metamorphosis and segmented musical sections makes a little bit more sense through that lens. All right, as far as instrumentation, it seems that a lot of this is just digital. We have the two guitars, the bass, the drums, and the vocalist. We also had guest musicians for the feminine vocals, keyboards, violin, mellotron, and electronics, which I think is just going to cover most of the instruments that were produced digitally, but not they sounded like the instruments in the song, but they were produced digitally. So that doesn't help me identify some of the instruments in here at all. On the side of the lyrics, though, this is a song about metamorphosis, and it is a song about observing things that change through metamorphosis. It's a little on the nose with that title. It is about somebody who is metaphorically, literally, locked in a room and changing into something darker. The beginning says, "And now I'm lying here, watching in silence, the process almost complete. This door is locked, enchanted with demise." and an image foreseen from the other room. Is this me? It says that this person struggles to gain authority over their own senses. It says that they are dressed in disguise. They stare at the edge of time, circulating without remorse, no regret for knowing too much, and staring at the eye of my world. Some of these lines make me wonder how young these people were when they wrote these lyrics. That one, I'm just kind of curious what it's supposed to mean. There's also the shifting perspective here at the beginning. It says, I'm lying here watching in silence. But then later on, we begin to talk about the struggle of his own senses. They paint him in white and he stares at my eyes. So is it just that the perspective hasn't changed and that the metamorphosis has crafted another self that he is viewing in the third person? Or how does this work? I'm not totally on board with what's happening. I get a little lost somewhere along the way. He says, though, the walls will stand tall and proud tomorrow. Where time stands still, it's impossible to cure my image or to cut my will. So he basically says that in this world, this is who I am. I get to choose who I am, what I do, what I look like. This is it. We wrap up the song. Says, mirrors upon mirrors of my soul trapped in a maze, but it's useless to express the pain. Room 63 is silent tonight. What's the import of that room number? It says, behind the door you can barely hear footsteps to another dream from here, but will you hear? For some reason, I thought the repetition at the end was something about opening eyes, but nope, just about hearing things. Will you hear? I don't know how I missed that one. Such a long shot, not even a single phonetic thing there that I could be like, oh, that's how I heard it. No. Anyways, yeah, it's about this transformation and there's a lot of pain that fuels it, and it's a quiet pain, not expressed. Other people are unknowing to it. It feels like a really edgy way of saying my darkness is taking over. And there's a couple of edgy lines in here, like the door being locked, enchanted with demise. That's so emo, and I love it. It's so dramatic, but it also places this in a very specific era, probably written by a specific age group of people. I don't know that I get all of it, but I understand the gist of it. I don't know if it fits the music, though. I kept going back to the emotional elements of the song, and it's really tough for me to place much of this against that backdrop. Not even necessarily trying to figure out what stanzas showed up where, because the vocals were fairly sparse. There's a whole 20 lines here for 10 minutes of music. Most of the vocals were done at the beginning with the clean male vocals, or in the two metal sections with the growls. So it's not really about placing that. It's just about taking the story of Metamorphosis and applying it to the general story of the music. And I have a really tough time overlaying those two. But as usual, these are just my thoughts on Subterranean Masquerade's observation through Metamorphosis. What do you think of this? Did any of this stand out to you? Did you enjoy it? Is there anything you didn't enjoy? Do you disagree with what I said? Did I say something that was wrong? You need to correct it. What's your opinion or interpretation of this track? Please put all of that and any other thoughts you might have into the comments section. Above that, in the description box, you'll find a link to Linktree. Takes you here. You can find links to my music, ways to support the channel, a link to the Discord server, and so much more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three of those. That wraps it up for today. I'll be back tomorrow, though, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. UTC as usual. We'll continue on with this week's theme. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.